The flickering green glow of Inigo's night vision goggles cast eerie light across the narrow tunnel ahead. The deeper section of the cave yawned before him like a second throat, tighter, darker, unmarked on any quest notice. He moved forward cautiously, one hand on the grip of his M4A1, the other steadying against the damp cave wall. This wasn't part of the contract, but instinct told him something else lived down here. Something the surface goblins served, maybe even protected. The air grew heavier. Warmer. He heard it before he saw it, a strange squelching noise, like meat dragging against stone. And then the echoing sounds of faint, shrill squeals. Dozens of them. High-pitched. Weak. He turned a corner and found the chamber. It was small, barely 8 meters wide, but packed. Nestled in piles of straw, rags, and rotting hides were goblins. Not warriors. Not even armed. Infants. Dozens of them. Their skin a pale, sickly green, their limbs stubby and underdeveloped. Some crawled. Others huddled together in groups. They squeaked, whined, and blinked against the green of his vision. Inigo's finger hovered over the trigger. He could feel his chest tighten, not with hesitation, but with tension. With clarity. These weren't misunderstood beasts. They weren't children in any human sense. They were monsters. Leave one alive, and 10 more will come back to kill. He didn't speak. He didn't hesitate. The first row fell, twitching as the rounds tore through their soft bodies. Screams echoed through the chamber, but they weren't battle cries. They were animal wails, instinctual shrieks of panic. He moved through them methodically, reloading halfway through. A few tried to scatter, crawling toward the far wall where a small drainage hole ran through the stone. He cut them down before they got close. By the time he was done, the floor was soaked in blood. His boots squished as he stepped back, breathing slow and steady. Plus 500 tokens, subjugation bonus, nest cleared. Plus 1,000 tokens, threat prevention, future horde eliminated. Total token balance, 3,083. He stared at the system messages for a moment, then dismissed them. It was a right decision to massacre those babies. He had gotten a lot of tokens out of it. But proof. He still needed proof. He reached into his satchel and retrieved a second cloth sack, one he had saved in case of additional finds. One by one, he began collecting ears and tusks from the corpses. They were smaller but distinct, and no guild would question the weight of goblin blood. By the time he stepped out of the deeper tunnel, the stink clung to him like a second skin. His gloves were red, his boots heavy, but his mind, clear. He had done what needed to be done. He retraced his steps back to the cave's mouth, passing the bodies of the earlier kills. 17 full-grown goblins, 1 chieftain, and over 100 spawn. Inigo reached the surface as the moon began rising, casting pale silver light through the trees. He turned off his night vision goggles and pulled them off, stowing them in his inventory. His rifle clicked as he toggled the safety. The Adventurers Guild was calmer now, lit by amber lanterns and filled with the low rumble of conversation and clinking mugs. Some adventurers were still gathered in groups, boasting about the day's work. Others sat alone, sharpening blades or nursing drinks. Inigo pushed open the door and walked straight to the front counter, sack in hand. Elise was still there, looking no less composed despite the hour. She was scanning a stack of papers when she heard his boots cross the floor. And for a moment, her professional expression slipped. "You're back." Inigo set the bloodied sack down on the counter with a soft thump. Goblin extermination, cave subjugation, complete. 17 adults, 1 chieftain. Elise blinked. "Wait, you took care of them all? By yourself?" "It seems that I am," Inigo finished, his voice calm but edged with quiet confidence. He untied the sack and let the flap fall open. The scent hit first, iron musk and old blood. Inside was a pile of goblin ears and tusks, all neatly severed, counted, and bundled in twine. Some were large and rough, clearly from adults. Others were smaller, thinner, fresher. Elise's eyes widened slightly as she took in the contents. "These," she paused. "There are more than what the quest listed." Inigo nodded. There was an unmarked tunnel deeper in. Another nest. Over 100 spawn. He watched her expression carefully. Not everyone would take the news of a massacre lightly, even if it was monsters. But Elise didn't recoil. She didn't flinch. Her eyes flicked to his, then back to the sack. "And you cleared it?" She nodded slowly, then reached under the counter to retrieve a clean parchment and a guild seal. "That wasn't listed on the quest, so it'll have to be submitted as an incident report. You'll get bonus pay, and the guild master might want to see you." She jotted notes with swift, graceful strokes of her quill, occasionally glancing back at him. That much blood on you, and you're still standing straight. I take it you weren't hurt. Didn't take a single hit. Elise looked back up, her expression unreadable. Then softly, impressive. She sealed the parchment, stamped it, and placed it in a tray for processing. For the original subjugation, 15 silver. 5 for the chieftain. And for the cleared nest. She paused as she retrieved a heavier pouch. An additional 15 silver. And that's just the base bonus. You'll probably be getting more once the guild master reviews your report. She slid the pouch across the counter. Inigo accepted it with a nod, then smiled. Enough for dinner? Elise tilted her head just slightly. I suppose it depends on where. Well, I am new to the town. Perhaps you can show me around. I'll see you once my shift ends. Inigo leaned against one of the pillars near the Adventurers Guild entrance, watching the evening crowd pass by as the city gradually dimmed under the twilight. The sky had turned a soft indigo, streaked with clouds catching the last of the sun's glow. Lamps were being lit all around, their gentle golden light flickering like stars scattered through the streets of Alandra. He checked the time on the wall-mounted sundial near the entrance. Elise's shift should have ended by now. Just as he was about to step inside again, the guild doors opened with a familiar creak. Elise stepped out into the cooling night, her usual guild uniform replaced with a deep blue traveling coat that matched the calm hue of the sky. A white blouse peeked out beneath the collar, tucked into a modest but well-fitted skirt that ended just above her boots. Her blonde hair, no longer tied into the practical bun she wore behind the desk, fell to her shoulders in soft waves. She looked radiant. Not flashy. Not overly made up. Just naturally, maturely beautiful. And it hit him again. He was standing beside a woman clearly in her late 20s, while he was technically a senior high schooler before all this. Still, this was another world now. Maybe this was one of the perks of reincarnation. You clean up well, he said, pushing off the pillar with a small grin. Elise chuckled lightly. So do you, though you still smell faintly of your recent endeavor. Occupational hazard. They began walking together, side by side, weaving through the lantern-lit streets of Alandra. So, Inigo asked casually, where's the best place in town to eat? I've got some silver burning in my pouch. There are a few, Elise said thoughtfully. But if you're asking for the best, there's a place just east of the Noble Plaza. Quiet, high-quality food, candlelight ambience. It's a bit expensive, though. I just wiped out an entire goblin nest, he replied, patting the coin pouch at his side. I think I can afford a nice dinner. Elise smiled, then gestured ahead. Then let's go. As they walked, Elise brought up something she'd nearly forgotten. Oh, before I forget. The guildmaster wanted to see you. He's swamped this week with war contracts and delegation paperwork. But he asked me to tell you he'll be available next week. Inigo raised an eyebrow. War contracts. There's tension brewing in the north, she said. Border patrols getting stretched thin. Monster raids increasing. Nothing too serious yet, but it's putting pressure on the Adventurers Guild system. Inigo stored the info away. Something told him that kind of detail would matter later. They arrived at the restaurant shortly after. It was a tall, elegant building tucked between a bookstore and a florist, its entrance framed by ivy-draped columns and a wrought iron sign that read La Farines. Soft violin music played inside. Warm light poured through arched windows. The scent of roasting meat, fresh bread, and herbed butter drifted out with every opening of the front door. The interior looked like something straight out of a romantic medieval anime. Arched stone ceilings, flickering chandeliers, and wood-paneled walls adorned with oil paintings of cities and landscapes. Waiters in vests and aprons moved between tables elegantly. They were seated near a corner window, away from the main crowd. A candelabra flickered between them. Inigo opened the menu and scanned the listings. Roasted duck with herb sauce. Braised beef in wine reduction. Garlic-laced mashed tubers. Buttered mushrooms and whitefish. He glanced at Elise. Order whatever you want. My treat. She smiled and selected a warm stew and a honey-glazed bread plate. Inigo went with the roast beef and seasonal greens. As the drinks arrived, crystal-clear spring water served in silver-rimmed goblets. Inigo leaned back in his chair. Mind if I ask a few questions? He said, tone casual. Still trying to get a grip on how this world works. Elise sipped her drink, then nodded. Ask away. First, how's the government structured? Like, is there a king? A council? Eldrith is a constitutional monarchy, she said. There's a royal family, House Eldrith, but most day-to-day decisions are handled by the Central Council. Think of them like ministers, each overseeing a department: military, trade, magic, law, that sort of thing. Interesting, Inigo murmured. So the king isn't absolute? Not since the Purging War 100 years ago, Elise said. Before that, monarchs held complete authority. But too much power led to civil unrest. Now, the king's more of a symbol and a diplomatic figurehead, while the council manages policy. Inigo nodded slowly. What about magic academies? I saw those students earlier in the plaza. There are 3 major academies in the kingdom. The one here in Elandra is the most prestigious. It's called Kalaris. They accept applicants twice a year. Is it hard to get in? For most people, yes. You need a mana assessment, a recommendation, and to pass the trials. Inigo paused. And if someone just wanted to learn, not necessarily graduate or rank up, but just understand magic? There are smaller training halls scattered around, Elise said. And the Imperial Mage Department also offers independent classes. You don't need noble blood or fancy lineage for those. He took another sip of his drink. So, not everyone has magic, huh? She shook her head. No. In fact, most don't. Magic affinity is something you're born with. It's like a sixth sense. You can train it if you have it, but if you don't, no amount of books or potions will change that. Inigo tilted his head. And you? Elise laughed softly. No magic here. I'm one of the many who just rely on steel, skill, and a good night's sleep. He smiled. You make that sound impressive. She met his gaze. Because it is. They shared a quiet moment as the waiter returned with their food. The scent made Inigo's stomach rumble. It was everything he imagined. Tender cuts of meat, seasoned to perfection, with just enough char on the edges. Elise's stew gave off a savory aroma laced with spices he didn't recognize. They ate slowly, talking between bites. Inigo asked more questions, and Elise answered with the patience of someone used to explaining things to travelers and greenhorn adventurers. Oh, and one more, he added as dessert arrived. Is there really a demon lord? That made her go quiet for a beat. Then, softly, yes. And he lived off in the abyss. Abyss? What's the abyss? You really don't know anything, huh? Which is why I am learning, Inigo replied with a smile. Very well, I'll try explaining it in a simple way. Elise set down her spoon gently and dabbed at the corner of her lips with a cloth napkin, her expression turning more thoughtful than usual. The flickering candlelight danced softly across her face, casting shadows beneath her lashes. All right, she said after a moment. Let's start with the abyss. Inigo leaned in slightly, resting his elbows on the table. This wasn't just curiosity anymore. This was research. A place called the Abyss didn't sound like somewhere you could ignore. The Abyss is complicated, Elise began. To put it simply, it's a separate plane of existence. A completely different world, layered beneath our own. Not underground, deeper than that. Dimensional. Like another realm, Inigo said, recalling certain game mechanics from his old world. Exactly. But it's not stable. The Abyss shifts, changes. It's like an ocean of floating landmasses, broken architecture, and dark skies that never brighten. Magic is wild there. Gravity, time, even space, it bends differently. Inigo frowned. So it's not just another continent. It's truly another world. Elise nodded. That's why when the demon race first emerged from the Abyss, we weren't ready. Wait, so the demons came from there? Yes. Over 500 years ago, something happened in the boundary between our world and theirs. A massive rift opened, so wide that it swallowed part of the kingdom of Vareth whole. From it, the demons poured out, beings shaped by the Abyss, cruel and intelligent, wielding magic unlike anything seen in Eldrith. Inigo's brows furrowed. What kind of magic? Corruption, warping, transformation. Not just fireballs and lightning bolts. They could infect living beings, twist them into monsters, cause fields to rot overnight. Entire towns fell in days. So, how did they get pushed back? Elise exhaled slowly. It wasn't easy. The kingdoms united, something that had never happened before. The demons were forced back, and the largest rift was closed. But not all of them were destroyed. It never closed, she said quietly. Just sealed. But not permanently. Every month or few, a rift opens again. Smaller, unstable, portals we call them now. Sometimes they appear in forests, abandoned ruins, even mountain passes. Temporary gateways that connect this world to pieces of the Abyss. Inigo nodded slowly, digesting that. In function, yes, Elise said. We call them rifts or abyss gates. They're highly dangerous, sometimes unstable. The guild is notified immediately if one appears, and a team of mages will measure the arcane output. He recalled the quest board earlier. I didn't see any rift-related jobs listed. That's because none have opened lately, she explained. But when one is discovered, the guild posts it immediately, complete with a threat level, magic fluctuation report, and advisory notes. Sometimes they're small, a lone demon beast. Other times, entire warbands. Lovely, Inigo muttered. So, do adventurers just charge in? Not alone, she said firmly. Abyss rifts are handled in teams. The guild will organize parties of properly ranked adventurers. You need a rift certification and a physical to even be allowed to sign up. She picked up her goblet, swirling the water slowly before taking another sip. Some of the rarest magical items come from rifts, though. Abyssal fragments, dimensional cores, warp-forged steel. Things you can't find anywhere else in our world. And then there are records of ancient ruins, broken castles suspended midair. Lost kingdoms swallowed by the abyss. Inigo rubbed the back of his neck. Sounds like endgame content. Elise blinked. What? Sorry. Just something from where I'm from. She tilted her head, amused but didn't press further. So, he continued, tapping a finger on the table. Are the demon lords from the abyss too? Yes. Demon lords aren't like human monarchs. They're more like apex entities, spawned or shaped by the abyss itself. Only a few ever emerge, and when they do, they command legions. Each one is tied to a concept. Corrosion. Madness. Hunger. Fear. Sounds eldritch. You could say that, Elise agreed. Most of the time, the guild, the council, and even the military all work together to track the mana signatures of these rifts. The royal mages keep several detection obelisks active around major cities. But the abyss, it's patient. It waits. Inigo let out a low breath, eyes narrowing. How often do the rifts appear? Sometimes 3 or 4 in a single month. No pattern. No warning. Just a shimmer in the air. Then a tear in the sky. And if someone just stumbled into one, they'd never return, she said, her voice quiet. A short silence settled between them, broken only by the distant clatter of dishes from the kitchen. Inigo glanced out the window at the soft night outside, then back to her. You know a lot. I'm a guild receptionist. And I grew up in a city with a portal scare when I was 12. I've seen what happens when people underestimate the abyss. He studied her for a second. She didn't wear armor. She didn't carry a weapon. But she spoke with the weight of someone who had been around danger before. Lived through it. Thank you, he said. She blinked again. For what? For the info dump. And the dinner. And the company. Elise gave a soft smile. You're welcome. But don't get used to the free lessons. Next time I'm charging. He grinned. Fair enough. They finished their meal quietly, the last few bites filling, warm, and comforting. Eventually, the waiter returned, and Inigo paid the bill without blinking. 42 silver coins total, and he tipped generously. As they stepped back out onto the cobbled streets, the city had grown quieter. The lanterns glowed brighter now against the darker skies. Elise pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders as a soft breeze brushed past. I should get home, she said. I open the guild desk again tomorrow morning. Inigo nodded. Right. I'll walk you back. She gave him a sidelong glance, amused. You don't even know where I live. I'll follow you. Quietly. Like a gentleman. She rolled her eyes but didn't protest. And so they walked, side by side through the sleeping streets of Alandra, the sounds of their boots the only thing accompanying them now. They walked through the quiet streets of Alandra, the light from the hanging lanterns painting golden lines across the cobblestones. Inigo glanced at Elise, who walked beside him with her coat gently swaying with each step. As they neared a corner, Elise turned to him. By the way, Inigo, do you have a place to stay? He blinked. Ah, good question. She raised an eyebrow, her expression somewhere between amused and incredulous. You mean to tell me you've been slaying goblins, getting paid, and you still haven't found lodging? I was a little busy today, he said with a sheepish grin. The whole registering as an adventurer and killing a small army kind of took priority. Not to mention, I just got here in this city. Elise exhaled through her nose, the faintest smile forming on her lips. Come on, I'll take you to a decent inn nearby. They turned down a quieter street, the buildings growing more residential. The marketplace noise had faded, leaving only the hum of far-off music and the occasional bark of a dog echoing through alleyways. After a few minutes of walking, they reached a 3-story timbered building tucked between a bakery and a cobbler's workshop. A hanging sign carved with a wheat sheaf and a sleeping sheep swung lightly above the entrance. "This is the Amber Hearth," Elise said, gesturing toward it. "It's not the fanciest, but it's clean, quiet, and the innkeeper is reliable. They've got private rooms with baths, and you won't have to sell a kidney to afford a night." "I like all of that," Inigo said. They stepped inside. The main lounge was warmly lit, with soft yellow lanterns and sturdy wooden furniture. A few travelers sat around a central hearth where a fire crackled, and the scent of lavender oil wafted faintly from somewhere in the room. Elise walked him up to the front desk and exchanged a few words with the innkeeper, a middle-aged woman with thick glasses and a motherly vibe. After handing over 10 silver coins for a 3-night stay, Inigo received a heavy brass key engraved with the number 7. "There," Elise said, satisfied. "Now you've got a roof over your head." Inigo turned to her. "Now let me return the favor. Let me walk you home." She hesitated. "You don't have to. I'd just be bothering you." He smirked. "You already fed me history, walked me to an inn, and made sure I didn't sleep on the street. I insist." Her eyes narrowed, but not with annoyance, more like faint exasperation at someone stubbornly polite. "Fine. But I'm not making it a habit. Wouldn't dream of it." They headed off again, taking a slower pace this time. The streets were nearly empty now, save for a few patrolling guards and a couple of late-night drunks stumbling out of a tavern. Eventually, they arrived at a modest single-story house nestled along a quiet lane with trimmed hedges and a short wooden fence. Warm light glowed from inside the windows, and flower pots lined the ledge. Inigo whistled low. "This is nice. Cozy. Feels like something out of a picture book." Elise looked at it, then sighed. 30 years left to pay it off. He turned to her, confused. "Wait, you financed this?" "Of course," she said. "Not everyone has the gold to buy property outright. The Crown Housing Bank offers interest-based financing options for approved citizens." Inigo just stared for a second. "Hold on, there's financing here." "Yes," she replied, giving him a sideways look. "How else do you expect people to afford homes?" Inigo looked away, rubbing the back of his neck. It's just not what I expected from a medieval setting." Elise tilted her head, clearly confused. "Medieval setting? Never mind," he said quickly. "Just something I read once." He mentally kicked himself. Telling people you're from another world is one of the dumbest things a reincarnated protagonist could do. That's Anime Survival 101. Rule number 1, blend in. Don't blow your cover. Elise, thankfully, didn't press the issue. She just gave him a strange look, then turned toward her door. "Well," she said. "Thanks for walking me home." "Thanks for everything," he said genuinely. She nodded. "Good night, Inigo." She stepped inside and gently closed the door behind her. The sound of the latch sliding into place echoed softly. Inigo stood there for a moment, hands in his coat pockets, staring at the closed door. 30 years of payments, he murmured. And I thought student loans were bad. He chuckled to himself, then turned and made his way back to the inn. Room 7 was on the second floor of the Amber Hearth. The hallway was quiet and smelled of old cedarwood. He unlocked the door and stepped into a space that was, surprisingly, more than he expected. The room was simple but functional. A wide bed with a thick feather mattress and clean linen sheets sat in one corner. A small wooden table and chair were placed near the window. A wash basin, mirror, and towel were neatly arranged by the far wall. And to his relief, a door to the right opened into a stone-walled bathing room with a spout-fed shower, copper pipes, and a heated bucket system. He let out a long sigh and pulled off his clothes. Inigo stepped into the bath chamber and took a long, scalding hot shower. The blood, dirt, and tension of the day washed away down the drain, replaced by the soothing burn of clean water. When he finally stepped out, steam trailing from his shoulders, he felt human again. He dried off, pulled on a plain cotton shirt and trousers provided by the inn, and collapsed onto the bed with a satisfied grunt. The mattress was soft, the pillow even softer. He laid there for a moment, staring at the wooden ceiling beams. His mind drifted to Elise's smile, to the flicker of candlelight in the restaurant, to the quiet way she carried herself. Strong but never cold. Another world, he thought. He wasn't just a high school student anymore. He was an adventurer. Tomorrow, he'd start doing what adventurers do for a living. The sun's rays streamed through the windows and landed on Inigo's face, who squinted against the heat and the light. He blinked and yawned, rolling to the side in an attempt to escape the direct glare. But the familiar chime from his weapon system rang in his head, snapping him to full awareness. Daily token bonus, 50 coins. Total token balance, 3,133. Inigo sighed, then sat up and stretched, joints popping one by one. The inn's bed was surprisingly comfortable, better than he expected for the price. The mattress was firm, the linens clean, and he hadn't been disturbed all night. No creaky footsteps. No goblin shrieks. No sudden system alerts in the middle of the night. He rose to his feet and headed toward the modest bath chamber attached to his room. The stone basin had already been filled with warm water, likely by the innkeeper's assistant at dawn. Inigo peeled off his shirt and stepped in, the heat washing over his body and easing the tension left from the previous day's massacre. He scrubbed thoroughly, twice, and then dried off with a coarse but clean towel before pulling on his regular travel clothes. Boots, a dark shirt, reinforced slacks, and his belt with basic gear pouches. It was simple but dull. He frowned at his reflection in the small mirror hung on the wall. "I need to buy more clothes," he muttered to himself. "Can't be walking around looking like I only own 2 outfits." He filed the thought away as a priority for later and gathered his belongings. Outside, the streets of Alandra were already coming alive. Merchants were shouting their morning prices, guards patrolled in pairs, and the scent of baking bread wafted through the alleys. The city felt, lived in. It pulsed with activity and life. Inigo headed toward the Adventurers Guild. When he arrived, the scene was familiar, bustling, loud, and filled with all kinds of adventurers. Some were new and wide-eyed like he had been a few days ago. Others were grizzled veterans, leaning against walls with arms crossed and unreadable expressions. The scent of oiled weapons, leather, and cheap breakfast ale filled the air. He made his way toward the quest board. Dozens of parchments fluttered slightly from the breeze of the open doors. His eyes skimmed over herb-gathering missions, escort duties, and pest removal, until something near the top caught his eye. Kobold extermination, A rank. Sightings confirmed in the East Hallow Hills. Multiple armed kobolds have taken over an abandoned mine, reportedly led by a larger alpha type. Estimated numbers, 25 to 30. Reward, 2 gold, 30 silver. Note, recommended for party of 4 or higher. Request approval required. 2 gold and 30 silver, Inigo murmured, raising his brows. That's no joke. After last night's dinner, his coin pouch had been noticeably lighter. He still had over 30 silvers, but if he wanted to keep living comfortably and upgrade his arsenal, he'd need a serious payday. He tore the quest notice from the board and made his way toward the counter. Elise was already at her post, hair neatly tied back again, her guild uniform pressed and flawless. She looked up the moment he approached, a flicker of amusement dancing in her eyes. "You're early," she said. "I figured I'd get ahead of the crowd," Inigo replied, placing the notice on the counter. Kobold extermination. Her smile faltered. "That one." He nodded. 2 gold, 30 silver. Looks worth the effort. Elise didn't answer right away. She took the paper and set it aside, her gaze more serious now. "You know that's a high-difficulty mission, right? It's meant for a team. For minimum. I work better alone." She raised an eyebrow. "That's what the last guy said. What happened to him?" He came back with a hole in his gut. "Barely made it." Inigo met her gaze without flinching. "I'll manage." Elise folded her arms. "You'll need approval for this one. I can't authorize it unless you have at least one other person to vouch for you or join your party." He frowned. "Come on. No exceptions," she said firmly, though her tone remained gentle. "I'm not letting you walk into that mine alone. The guild has its rules for a reason." He glanced around the room. "Fine. I'll find someone." "Good luck with that," Elise added, already returning to her paperwork. "Everyone's already turned it down. No one wants to fight kobolds right now." With a quiet sigh, Inigo stepped away from the counter and began scanning the room. He asked a heavy-set warrior leaning against the back wall. "Sorry, already committed," came the reply. He approached a twin-dagger rogue polishing her blades. "Pass. A trio of archers? Not suicidal, thanks." One after another, the answer was the same. Either they had other jobs, or they weren't interested in kobolds. Apparently, these weren't your typical club-wielding pests. Organized kobold units were infamous for traps, flanking tactics, and fighting in tight quarters. "Damn," he muttered, looking back at the quest slip in his hand. That's when he felt someone approach from behind. "You're looking for someone to join you?" The voice was soft, melodic, but firm. Feminine, A woman stood there, a hood pulled low over her face. Her cloak was dark green, trimmed with silver, and a longbow was slung across her back. From beneath the hood, he caught a glimpse of pale hair, silver white, and the faint glint of pointed ears. "I overheard you at the board," she continued. "Kobold extermination, right?" "That's right," Inigo said, eyeing her gear. She didn't look heavily armored, but the way she stood, weight balanced, one hand resting on her belt, told him she knew how to fight. "I'll join you," she said. He raised an eyebrow. Just like that, there was something oddly serious in her tone, something that said she wasn't just chasing a payout. He studied her a moment longer, then extended a hand. "Name's Inigo." She looked at it, then removed her glove and shook his hand briefly. The quest notice crinkled slightly in his other hand. "Well, Lyra," Inigo said with a slight smile. "Looks like we're going kobold hunting."